Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life Sex. I am your host, Danielle Love, founder of the Sacred Sexual Energy Body of Work and also Diabetes Dominator Coaching. Here at Real Life Sex, we are very excited about sharing stories highlighting different than the traditional, what I call heteronormative, monogamous mold lifestyle, even though that's all well and good. But we like to shine light on the multitude of ways in which we have the sovereignty to choose our own desires and pleasures and set our own relationships up in that way. So I have an amazing guest today who's going to share her very juicy story with us. And I'm going to read you just a short bio about her and we're going to get right into the story. So Maya Gobara is a spiritual educator, ordained reverend priestess, and content creator for those who want to live aligned and embodied lives. As a lifestyle and professional dominatrix, she brings clarity, compassion, and honesty to those that she works with. She specializes in working with neurodiverse and chronically ill femmes who believe in love, sex, and magic. And I just happen to be a chronically ill femme who believes in all of those things. And I didn't really know that until I read your bio. So it's lovely to know that about you, Maya. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm excited to get to know you and get to know your story and your journey. So reading about all of your amazing qualifications, a lifestyle and professional dominatrix, tell me and the folks out there watching, how does one come to that lifestyle and choice? And were you always out and open with your sexuality? Did you have some pushback as you kind of made your way on this journey to where you are now? And just kind of give us the details about your story because I want to know. I'm interested.
Well, I grew up very, very Christian, Pentecostal. So in the whole, necklines up to here, skirts down to the ankles, no red, so yes, very much pushback. I founded pro-doming in my early 20s. As a result of trauma. And so I got into it because I wanted to get back, my power and all of that stuff. And I kind of did it that way for a while. Then I left the lifestyle because I got married. Then I got divorced. And I went back to kind of collect all those parts and pieces of myself that I kind of lost in the marriage. And I founded the lifestyle part. And so I went from wanting to punish others with, that way of life to actually integrating it and finding the healing portions and the more connected and beautiful parts of BDSM, which is how I kind of started lifestyling. And so the way that I do it now and the reasons that I do it now, completely different from the reasons that I did it then. And yes, there's definitely some pushback amongst my family. I'm definitely the oddball. So, yeah.
So there's a few questions basically, but for folks out there, and I think that's kind of one of the biggest things that I like to shed light on is the fact that when we make our own choices that honor our own desires, our own pleasures, and are really aligned with our own truths, oftentimes folks that are close to us don't understand those choices and therefore might, I call it pushback, but it could range from any number of things to completely disconnecting from somebody or saying negative things to someone, which again kind of just stems from the not understanding and maybe having a belief system that, in my opinion, is not true, but informs them that different lifestyle choices are wrong or sinful. How do you handle that in your own kind of family dynamic?
For me, I choose to love them the way that I want to love them. And I don't let, I just said something today, it doesn't matter what you intend. It matters how I receive it. And your mood is not going to impact mine. And just learning how to neutralize.
Yeah, so we call that return to sender. Yeah.
A lot of times. And It's just, I really don't take things personally because I know it has a lot more to do with them. And remembering that I am very happy with who I am and the way that I live my life, and their projections, I don't have to take those on.
Yes. And that is such a healthy, embodied way to deal with not only negative feedback on your lifestyle choices in the sexual realm, but just in general, as humanity exists. And a lot of humanity has a lot of things to say that a lot of us don't want to hear anything about, and vice versa. So understanding that when folks are coming at you in a way that might feel kind of negative, that it's really their issue. It's not yours. And so to be able to reflect that back to them, or like we say, return to sender, we're returning this energy back to you. This is not ours to keep. It's for you. That is super healthy, at least from where I'm sitting. And so would you say that the transition from kind of the punishing kind of mentality in the dominatrix situation to understanding, because I have spoken to another amazing dominatrix situation interviewee that I'm learning so much about, but I've had my own bits of knowledge of it as well. But it is sexual healing, and it does heal you, what I would call in a holistic sense, in like a mind and a body and a spirit. Would you say that that journey for you has helped you with that pushback from other people, or like kind of knowing who you are, that compassionate sexual healing through the dominatrix professional lifestyle?
Absolutely. It's taught me that there are layers, that there's so many layers, that a lot of times what you're presenting, there's something else usually underneath that, and teaching me how to like have more compassion for people. I've learned more compassion for men. I've gone through a huge healing journey through BDSM in terms of like my compassion for men and how I feel about them. And they've gone from being like villains to just people with wants and needs and desires, and learning the language and like just different love languages, different ways of being, different ways of expressing themselves. And so, yeah, it's definitely helped me, I would say, in the compassion area for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people out there who really are not educated or really don't know much about the BDSM community, they probably don't mix the terms dominatrix and BDSM with compassion, right? I completely understand it. But can you speak a little bit more on how that manifests in the lifestyle or professional dominatrix realm?
Usually with my clients, or be they, well, I have two lifestyle subs. One of them is actually my partner, and the rest are clients. And so with my clients, a lot of times they're coming to kind of unload, to unburden, to like, they tell me all the things that they are afraid to tell the world. They come and they are the versions of themselves that they are afraid to show the world. And having that just be a complete experience, it can be as debaucherous or it can be as spiritual. And sometimes it becomes a very emotional experience for someone to validate their existence, to validate their wants and their needs, to see them be so validated and to leave completely transformed versus how they came into the room versus how they leave the room and how they leave the space lightened, happy, unburdened. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's helped me see the softer side of men, the parts that they try to hide from the world because they're afraid that it's going to be abused, which is oddly enough that they come to a dominatrix, but it's nurtured. Like, I've learned to nurture through domination.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely beautiful. And the healing that can occur in a very short period of time. I mean, I always say, from being a coach for 11 plus years, 10,000 plus hours, it can take a very long time for a transformation to occur, a shift in energetic consciousness, or it can happen like that. Like it can. And so I imagine in your line of work, you probably witness a lot of quick transformative energetic shifts because of how fully you're willing and able to hold the space to see these folks and accept them and validate them, as you said, and kind of let them know, hey, you're a whole person. You have these kinks or whatever society wants to label them as, and that doesn't make you bad. It actually just makes you you. And in that, I mean, in that space, that transformation happens very quickly. Do you notice that with your clients as well?
Yes. It's very quick, especially the new ones.
Yeah.
And after that, they just want to talk. You know, sometimes the next session is nothing but talking because they want to process all that happened, all that occurred, and how much better they're feeling about themselves, which is, it's a beautiful thing. So yeah.
That safety. And that's really, I think, at the core of all of what you do, probably, in my estimation as a dominatrix, is that you create an actual safe space, probably at the rawest form of the availability of it emotionally, for sure, is for someone to expose themselves to you in a way that feels so vulnerable. And then to have you say, that's not only is that okay, but I accept you for that. I have love for you because you're here. I mean, I mean, it's making me want to look more into this. Really, it's just so, because I know the power of that kind of transformation, and so it's just so beautiful that you do that. So, can you speak a little bit more on the Sacred Hoe Collective? Because I was, of course, perusing your website, and now we're friends on Facebook now, and I see you post about it. So, can you give me a little background about how that container formed and what goes on in there, and how you lead that?
Yeah, so the Sacred Hoe Collective is for my femmes and for my MBs, my non-binary family, to just kind of come in and to be. It's very much a safe space for us to explore sensuality, sexuality, and spirituality. A lot of times the sexuality and spirituality are very disconnected. It's either one or the other. And here in this space, it's very embodied. And so we have everybody, like I just had a sex worker come in to kind of talk about her life and to help those who maybe wanted to get into that stuff safely and things like that. We have full-blown reprogramming sessions, and we have sensual meditations, and it's really prioritizing the bottom chakras. And I feel like a lot of times we are so obsessed with the solar plexus, the third eye, the heart, that we forget about the foundation. And a lot of times that is what's really messing us up. I know for me, I ignored that part of myself once I started. I was so, once I started my healing journey, about 8 years ago, I just kind of wanted to rush through the bottom 3 chakras so I can hurry up and get to the upper chakras, which are just the important ones. And that just did me no good. I had to go back to the beginning. And so it's a space where that is prioritized for sure.
And can you speak a little bit more on that? Because I'm huge into the chakra system. I am all about it. I have chakra flags hanging over the head of my bed. I am very much into the entire, I call it the energy system. I mean, you can call it anything.
I love that. Yeah.
But so the root and the sacral, obviously I'm deeply rooted in those areas of my body. And for folks out there who might not be familiar with what that is, and so I'm going to say, as far as the root, it connects you to the earth and keeps you feeling grounded, and your sacral chakra is essentially your womb space and the home of all creative force and energy in the world, right? So can you talk a little bit about your journey? Because you said you resisted that. If I'm guessing, is it because that's where your blockages probably lived and you wanted to avoid that? Okay.
For sure. It's you wanting, I definitely wanted to avoid the fact that I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe in my body. I didn't feel safe in my surroundings. I didn't feel grounded. I didn't feel rooted in anything. And I had no idea how to go about doing that because the books weren't working. The meditations weren't working. I just knew that I had this emptiness or this fear, and so instead I would try to skip that. And it's okay, well, maybe it's the heart instead, or maybe I just need to speak up more. And I found myself, there's a saying that's the higher up you go, the deeper you need to go.
Yeah.
And I found myself going really high up, without the roots, without being properly grounded and rooted. And I just kept dropping. I kept falling. I kept toppling over, and I couldn't figure out why. And it's because I really wasn't rooted. I wasn't grounded, and I definitely wasn't connected to my sensuality anymore. I was very disconnected, but it was very performative. It wasn't for me. From the outside looking in, it looked like it was all great, but everything that I was doing was for show. Yeah. It wasn't actually for me.
Yes. And I think that a lot of people have that, you know, a lot of people, especially on with the social media of today and everything else, like we see this picture and folks kind of, I don't want to say you say performative, right? And I think a lot of times it's not even performative, like for any other reason other than that person is feeling unwhole or unhealed in some way, and they don't know the ways in which they need to explore that. So they try to, like, putting on makeup or whatever it is, like trying to put on a Band-Aid over kind of like a gaping wound of sorts. And doing that can cause even more disconnection, I feel like, for most people. So what if you're willing to share, like, what was the, I don't know, the spark or the experience that got you to fully kind of sit with your root and your sacral chakras, and what was there in that kind of narrative and feeling of not being safe in one's body? What got you to really start working with that, to kind of clear that out?
I left my marriage, which was huge for me. And not only did I leave my marriage, at the same time, I hopped states. And so I just upped and moved to Little Rock, which is the natural state. I'm from Chicago, and everybody was just like, what would make you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know that I needed the earth. I needed change. I needed nature. And I just hadn't had it before. And I know sometimes they say, well, you can't outrun, moving won't help. Moving helped. Nature helped, reconnecting to the earth in a way that I never had before. Being surrounded by trees and earth and mountains and making sure that I got out in them. It changed my life.
Yeah. And are you still there? Are you still?
I am still here.
Okay. I mean, for me, that sounds 100% completely understandable and also very relatable to me right now, where I reside and have resided my entire life in Philadelphia, not on the outskirts or the suburbs, like legit. I'm from Philly, born and raised. And I have a little small backyard that's not private, and it's backed up to a huge apartment complex, and I'm in townhomes with 4 other, even though I love the actual people who are my neighbors, and I'm very grateful for their positive energy, the lack of lush, just landscape of nature I can feel it. This is a conversation that occurs in my home on a regular basis. My husband and I were going to move to California a couple of years ago. My mom got diagnosed with cancer. That's a whole other story. And we kind of decided to put that on the back burner. But, that call that you were answering, that was probably your sacral and your root chakra saying, I need to root down into like the earth. And I can't do that. No offense to Philly or Chicago, but like the asphalt is not as conducive to fostering and facilitating that connection as the dirt, the sand, the roots of the trees, like everywhere. So for me, that makes complete sense. And is that a practice? Like for me, I ground every day. Like, and I even told you, I'm holding a crystal in my hand now. I go outside on my little patch of grass for at minimum 5 minutes a day and put my bare hands in the grass. Is grounding part of your process, or how do you, what are your actual practices?
Yes, grounding is a huge part of my practice. I absolutely have to do it. I am neurodiverse. I have autism. I'm on the autistic spectrum, ADHD, and so grounding is a must for me. I've learned through being here. And so luckily I have a dog, so I have like an excuse to go out, and he's a senior pet. So I'm outside so many times a day. And I just make sure that I do just kind of, when I take him to the park, that I myself am taking in nature, that I'm taking in the wind, the air, the mindfulness part of like walking and really taking in nature and building relationship with my local landscape and just really paying attention to what's around me versus just trying to get it over with and get back in the house. It's what I found myself I used to do. But now I do my best to just be present. And that's what helps the most. Yeah.
No, that's so beautiful. And do you feel like, for me, for sure, when I'm out hiking or somewhere, not necessarily in the city, but outside and getting away and having that time, it is an incredibly sensual experience, both in the sense where you are being present and taking in all of this beauty around you. I'm a big tree hugger, plant petter. Like my husband, he's ex-military. When we first met like 15 years ago, I would touch he's like, don't touch every plant. He's like, you don't know what's going to give you some sort of rash. I'm like, shh, it's okay. Now he's like completely used to it. He's like, okay, there she goes again, just touching any old thing. And luckily I have never, knock wood, gotten any like rashes, but I will touch everything that doesn't look threatening, and really like enjoy that process. It also is very sexual, I feel, because the earth itself is in a constant state of reproduction. I mean, it's always sprouting up something new. It's always manifesting something fresh. And do you find that it's a turn on for you sensually and sexually to be out in nature? Does that vary? Because for me, it's a huge turn on.
Yes, it is. I find it so funny. And this is inside. My son got me these lilies, and the lilies have just like bloomed, and on the inside, they're like they're oozing and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God, that is so, yeah, it's like a turn on almost. Yeah. It's like being turned on by nature. That just happened yesterday. So I just find it really funny that you brought that up.
Oh, good. So, yeah, I think I'm very in touch with my clairsenses, and I don't know, just something came to me. I was like, I wonder if she's turned on by nature too, because I am. Maybe it was just a little nudge, and so in your work, so having lived with type 1 diabetes, insulin dependent my entire life, working with a lot of folks who are chronically ill, how do you find that the dominatrix work, the Sacred Hoe Collective work, the sensuality and the sexuality work heals that part of you as you identify as neurodiverse, and other folks who come to you who may have chronic illnesses? How does that work for them in your own experience and observation?
Right, because along with that, I have rheumatoid arthritis, I have fibromyalgia, and I have Sjogren's. Hey. And my mother, she has lupus. And so for me, it's the slowing down, because I used to just go, 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 go. I don't know how I was able to sustain that. Every doctor I've seen has wondered how I was able to sustain that. Mm-hmm. The healing is in the slowing down, and it's taught me to really pay attention and to really ingest what it is that I'm doing. Whereas I used to just hoard information. It gives me this gives me the time to actually like apply it, to integrate it, to embody it, and learning that it's not how much I can consume, it's what I do with what I consume that really matters. And so learning to do a lot with smaller portions is what like has really helped.
Okay. Yes, it's back. All right. It couldn't be that far away. It was just right there. Okay. So yes. All right. So chronic illness and sexual wellness. For me, part of my journey with that was when I was first diagnosed, I was very young child. And then through my teens, what I found was that living with a disease where one of my organs didn't work at all or work well, certainly not enough to sustain my life, I made up a narrative that I find runs rampant, certainly through the diabetes community, that part of our body is out to get us, that part of our body, it hates us, is trying to kill us. These are narratives that I've heard perpetuated through different Facebook posts and blog posts and things like that. Did you ever struggle with your body, loving your body fully because or despite the fibromyalgia, the RA, all of these different things? Like, how does that work in your life? Because I've come to a point where I love every part of me. I love my pancreas. It's doing the best it can. I love it so much and I tell it every single day. But that was a journey. Do you have a journey kind of in that?
Oh, yes, that's a journey. I just went through a point where I was just so disconnected. I was so upset with my body. I was so pissed off. I felt betrayed.
Yes.
You know, I really felt like my body was failing me, like it was betraying me. And I was just really upset. And that was a whole healing process. And now I'm just so in awe of my body and what it can do and how it consistently continues to hold me and to nurture me and to how my other organs will pick up the slack for like how it's amazing.
Magic.
The human body is amazing.
Yeah.
And when I think about all the things that it still does and that it's able to do even with these things, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes. And so how do you get there though? Like, because for me, it was a conscious reconditioning of, and it embodied a lot of the things that you just spoke on, really being in awe of the safety that my body provides me, understanding that my body actually only has one job and it's only to keep me alive. That's it. That's all my body is here for. And appreciating that and having intense and overwhelming gratitude for that. That was something that I conditioned myself to do. And now it's literally just part of who I am. I can't even imagine thinking anything else about my body at this point in my life. And you said you just went through that kind of healing process? Like what?
I just went through that healing process not that long ago, I would say, because I knew that I've always known that something was wrong with me. That something was very wrong since I was a kid. But I've literally just found out everything that has like been happening with me over like the last year. Okay. I had to get really serious. I had to get in doctors' faces. I had to consistently advocate for myself because being a Black woman, they just kind of assume that you can take it or that you're over exaggerating. And I had to demand the blood test. I had to demand that people actually paid attention. Yeah. Like I've had extremely high blood pressure documented since I was 12. No one cared. They would just tell me like, what do you have to be? What do you have to be anxious about? Calm down.
Oh my
consistent
God.
Headaches, consistent chronic fatigue, just all the signs and symptoms. No one really paid attention. And so I would say over the past honestly, moving here helped me tune into my body enough to say, okay, I know that something is seriously wrong and that I need and I felt like my body was betraying me because it just felt like everything just started going downhill. I didn't realize how hard I was pushing myself. Mm-hmm. And when I slowed down, I was able to actually feel what was happening in my body.
Yes. And advocate for yourself. Yes.
Yeah. So over the last year, it's been me in my mirror. It's been me watching a ton of even medical videos about just how amazing the human body is. Mm-hmm. Reading books, listening to audiobooks about how the human body works, about how rheumatoid arthritis works, about how fibromyalgia works, about how the body picks up the slack, about how even when I feel like all the things that are going wrong, it's my body still trying to take care of itself. And just realizing how much my body is consistently there for me, even when it's hurting. Yeah. And so just kind of doing my part to help it do its thing. And so I see just us in tandem, like this is a symbiotic relationship, Yeah.
Talk about true self-love, all of that. And I used to run a group coaching program called Love Yourself to Health because I genuinely believe that self-love at the deepest, most spiritual level is the facilitator. It fosters healing. It actually allows your cells to realign, to physiologically change your inner structure. And I've seen it happen many, many times. And it sounds like that's what's happening for you now. And are you at a place now where you are kind of do you have the answers that you were seeking, or are you still in the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I finally have pretty much all the answers that I'm seeking. I'm on the other side of it now. And I have my answers. I am figuring out my parts and pieces now. So yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. I'm so grateful for that. Yeah. This is all stuff I'm very passionate about. Again, did not know that we were going to have this conversation today, but I mean, I have so many friends. I used to run an online summit called the Diabetes Empowerment Summit. And last year in 2020, I had one where 2 different Black women came on to talk about how they were completely misdiagnosed because the doctors, again, with that same disgusting attitude and also systemic programming, decided that because they were over the age of 18 and because they were slightly overweight according to their own, that they had type 2 diabetes. However, me sitting here being a diabetes educator, 50% of type 1 diabetes diagnoses are 18 and over, and it takes one blood test, one vial of blood to determine what type of diabetes it is. And the thing is that if you say it's type 2 and you start treating type 2 and that person has type 1, they are going to die. It's not like that's actually black and white. I'm not into like binaries at all. I hate binaries. But generally speaking, if your body doesn't produce insulin and you're not giving it insulin, you're going to die. And so I'm so supportive of your journey and I understand your journey very, very deeply. And I have extreme compassion for what you've gone through and admiration for your willingness to stand up for your body, for yourself. And I'm a huge advocate. I have many times where I've gone to doctor's appointments with people, including my mother, because I will speak to the doctors. I am not a person who sees a doctor in any type of a pedestal situation. Like, I'm super grateful you went to school. I'm super grateful you're doing your job. And we are in this is a relationship. You are not my God. I don't see you as the end all be all. And it sounds like you kind of took on that role for yourself as well. And I'm just so grateful because without that, people die unnecessarily. So that's my tirade for the day on that. And I'm just, thank you for honoring yourself. And I'm sure you're helping other folks in your containers who maybe, that's an ongoing thing for those of us who have chronic illnesses.
It is. And you find that you attract other people who have them. And it's the oddest thing. And it's like the more that you talk about it, the more people are like, I've been feeling that way too. And just teaching them like how to advocate for themselves, the right questions to ask. And it's a blessing for me to be able to help others, to be able to see and to be able to help save their lives, because we go through life, like I always went through my life feeling like I was so weak, that I was being a drama queen, that everybody felt the way that I did in my body. And I couldn't figure out why everyone else was able to push through it, and it's just figuring out that, and I had to go through that too. I had so much anger, figuring out that no, everyone wasn't feeling like you were. You really were struggling. You really were tired. You really were in pain, and so being able to help other people see that too, like you're not weak. You're not being a drama queen. You feel what you feel, and it is very real. So yeah.
Yes. And I think the whole thing is so deeply related, is that loving your body in a sexual way, in a sensual way, in a medical way, it doesn't matter the way in which you're doing it. It all relates and equals out to healing. That's kind of what I'm getting from this conversation, which is, I think is a really, for me, that's big, right? Because whether you are I call it somatic self-soothing, where you're touching yourself to calm yourself down, parasympathetic nervous system, whether that's, self-pleasuring in a sexual way or just a relaxing way, or whether I'm changing my insulin pump, or you're taking your medication, or whatever ways in which you need to take care of yourself. That is deep body love. And it's not just binary. And so and this kind of bring it back around to the sexual side of it, sexual healing. I mean, so do you use, are you a self-soother? Do you use somatic ways in which to say you're having some sort of flare up or some sort of situation in your life? How do you use your body and your own physical touch to kind of bring yourself back to the place where you feel safe?
Me and music and self-touch, it's everything. Just from the head down, and I will just put on a playlist. Because I'm autistic, I can have like, sometimes I can only listen to like 5 songs for like months. And I'll just cut those songs on, and it's me on the floor, and I'm just touching from head down the body, down the breast, down the thighs, down the legs, and back up again. And I can do that for like an hour. And then I have a mirror. I'm very much a Leo, and so I believe in full-length mirrors. And that's pretty much what I do. Like, it's simple, but it brings me back into my body, and it brings me like here and present, and it also lets me know where I'm kind of hurting in the areas that I hadn't been like paying attention to, so that way I can show them like some extra love. It's like, okay, I kind of need to put a heating pack on that. Yeah. Or, whereas at first I was just kind of going. It's teaching me like where my body needs like some extra attention, some extra stretching. Yeah.
I love that so much. And so for somebody out there who might be watching this, who maybe has some sort of chronic illness or issue, neurodiverse, how would you recommend, and let's just even take a step further there, where they're like, they've never connected self-touch with regulation, with calming, with understanding your body's blockages. How would you suggest that they approach doing that for and with themselves?
Get yourself some love songs. I have love songs that they are to me. I know they're supposed to be to someone else, but they're to me. And I first just start with internalizing those songs. Then, because self-touch wasn't something that was very second nature to me. And then I just started looking in the mirror, and I just started talking to myself. I started singing to myself. Then I started timidly touching. I wasn't like just all like this at first, slowly but surely. It's okay to start to build a relationship with yourself. And the same way that you build a relationship with others, those healthy baby steps, you can start those healthy baby steps with yourself. It's okay if you're not this full-blown seductress who's doing all the things. Allow yourself to build the relationship slowly, and remember that your pacing is your pacing, and that's okay.
Yes, that's such good advice. That is such good life advice for everyone. There is no set amount of time that you need to get from point A to point B. It's the willingness to, I call a new habit or something practice. I call it like, try it on. Like for me, I want to go to Target. Maybe I get it, I try it on, I wear it for like a day, and I'm like, maybe I don't like it, and I'm going to take this back. I feel like most people will shove that type of a practice like under the rug or to the side, almost like an afterthought or something that is actually not super effective, and they won't even try it on. And so I love the way you describe that, because it's essentially saying, just put one pant leg on and just wear that for a little while. That's fine. Not only is that fine, that's wonderful. That's excellent. That's to be celebrated. And whatever length of time it takes you to get comfortable with physically knowing your own body, which will heal you no matter what ails you, that is okay. And I think that is a beautiful sentiment to kind of begin kind of bringing this to a close. But is there any other wisdom or experience or gems you want to drop on people out there before we kind of bring this to a close?
For me, it's just don't be afraid to trust your own inner knowing. You feel what you feel, and trust that, and operate in that, and test it. Just like you said, try it out. Test it out and see, and ask the questions, and self-inquiry and journaling and exploration, and just not being afraid to do that. It can literally save your life.
Save your life. change your life, open up so much the avenues for energetic receiving of pleasure, not just physical, but in every other way. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So yes. Whew. All right. Well, I am, as usual, at the end of one of these interviews, filled with life and very excited to have gotten to know you better and to hear your ways about how you heal yourself and how you help others heal through your work. I'm going to, under the YouTube link, you're going to find Maya's social media and also her website. So if you want to go work with her, I see what she's got to offer, you can go ahead and do that. And I really hope that everybody out there learned something new and found some excitement or some healing in these words in this raw, candid conversation. And Maya, thank you so, so much for coming on here and just having this conversation with me. I really, really appreciate you.
I've enjoyed myself. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I will see you all on the next episode of Real Life Sex.